Okay, so we're back in the AutoCAD drawing area again. Our 3D solids are just sitting here, and they're sitting near the X and Y there, what they call the UCS. Now that UCS, the X and Y, is actually sitting at the origin of where X equals 0, Y equals 0, and if you're working in 3D, where Z equals 0. You can just see the blue Z there, and it's like a blue axis coming out of the screen at you. Now you can see that that's near 0, 0 right now. And what I want to show you is the zoom all command. Now if I do a zoom all at the moment, watch what happens. I go up to the view tab, navigate panel, click on the flyout, and I go to zoom all. So I click there, and if I do a zoom all, it does something really strange. It takes my objects right over there to the top right hand corner of the screen. That's because I have not set my limits appropriately, what they call your drawing limits or grid limits. You can see the grid in the background, yeah, in AutoCAD. It looks like graph paper. Basically, that grid is acting as a drafting aid. Now, at the moment, 0, 0 is there at the intersection of those axes, and you can see there that my 3D objects are just above that. And you can see if we come out along the x-axis and move up, and go up the y-axis and move in, you can see the center of that circular solid is there. Now, let's set our limits slightly differently. Let's use the bottom left corner, 0, 0, as the bottom left corner of our limits. We type the word limits, like so, and press enter. And it asks us to reset the model space limits. Now, make sure your dynamic is on, down here at the bottom of the screen. Your dynamic input. It's this one here. Dynamic input. Make sure it's switched on so that you can see these prompts. It's a lot easier to change limits when you've got those prompts in front of you. So it's a 0 in the X coordinate box, and you can either press the comma key or the tab key to go to the Y coordinate box, and that will also be 0. Once you've got a 0 in both boxes, press enter on the keyboard, and it prompts you now to specify the upper right corner of your limits. Now remember, you're working in the model space, in the model tab, which is down here. Now the model tab is infinite. So what we're doing is we're specifying an area in infinite space bounded by coordinates that we want to work in. So I'm going to say that I want it to be 7,000 units. Doesn't matter what those units are right now. And then comma key or tab key, and then 7,000 again in the y-axis, and press enter again. So what you've done is you've specified those limits. Now we're going to do something a little bit clever here. We're going to double click on the wheel, and that zooms to the extents of our objects. Then we go back up to the view tab, navigate panel, and click, and we select all. And now it does something very different. What it's done is it's centralized the object, but you can see that we've got a distance around our object. Our grid limits have centered, and basically, if you imagine that it's 1,000 from there along the x-axis up to there to the center, and 1,000 up the y-axis and across there to the center. If you take that to 7,000, it's going to be about there, isn't it? Ballpark figures. So basically what AutoCAD's done is it's zoomed all and zoomed to those limits for me so that I can see on the screen where I am. If I do an extents, it goes back to that. If I do a zoom all again on the navigate panel here, it does a zoom all and positions that object in the center of the screen, but also zooms to the limits and basically makes sure that you have your bounded area to work in the infinite model space.